The global mining company Glencore, which has agreed to pay a massive fine of $1.5 billion in the US because of acts of bribery it committed in several countries in Africa, now says it's not committed corrupt acts in South Africa. Last week in the US, Glencore admitted to corruption when it was being run by the South African Ivan Glasenberg. It's now being run by another South African, Gary Nagle. Glencore also operates in our country. Now it claims that while it was corrupt in other countries, it wasn't corrupt here. Ed Stoddard is a journalist at Business Maverick. He joins us now. Ed, good afternoon to you. So, Glencore wants us to believe that yes, there was corruption. Yes, it did happen in other places on our continent. It just didn't happen here. Can we believe them?
People would be understandably skeptical, I think, because Glencore clearly has a credibility problem now. Their corrupt acts have been coming to light for years. And earlier this year, they did make a provision for $1.5 billion, because that's the amount of fines they expected to pay. In the U.S., they're paying $1.1 billion. And there are fines in other jurisdictions which will probably add up to that amount. And they may even have to have provisions, I suspect, down the road for potential lawsuits, potentially from civil society and that kind of thing. Rival companies that may feel that Glencore unfairly bribed its way into a contract or license or something like that, that they were thereby deprived of. So this is by no means over. So, but to return to your question, so what we have is a company that by its own admission was running a criminal enterprise on a very large scale. In fact, an official from the U.S. Justice Department described the level of bribery as staggering. And they operate here in South Africa, which we know has its own corruption problems, state capture and all that. So people could be forgiven for suspecting that they may have some skeletons in their closet here, although I hasten to add that there's absolutely no evidence of that at the moment, and certainly there's been no official investigation to my knowledge into that, aside from the fact that, Glencore, I believe, made a presentation at the state capture inquiry.
Well, this is interesting because, they own the Optimum coal mine. Mosabenzile Zwane, the Minister of Mineral Resources at the time, put them under intense pressure to sell it. He then got on a plane with the Guptas to Switzerland, in the end meeting with Ivan Glasenberg, or at least sitting in the corner while the deal was done, depending on which version you believe. The Guptas made a fortune. They are the ones who bought it. They made a fortune out of Eskom as a result. They were selling coal to Eskom. Well, wait, hold on. Eskom gave them, I think, 500 million rand as a prepayment. We still sort of feel from Glencore's side, we don't really know. You would think if you were put under pressure, if you're an international mining company, you're being put under pressure to sell a mine, you would say so. Other companies did. Other mining companies, when they were under pressure, they went to court. But Glencore did something different.
Well, if you think about the parties who were involved in the meeting, so it's the Guptas, who we know now are basically nefarious. It was Zwane, their favorite minister. And it was Ivan Glasenberg, who now has been shown to be effectively have been a godfather of a global criminal syndicate. So you have to have some suspicions. Like I said, they can say that they've had no shenanigans in South Africa, and perhaps we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. But you can imagine the Sopranos setting up shop in Sicily, for example, and there being no evidence of anything untoward. That would seem kind of improbable.
In the middle of all of this, strangely, is President Cyril Ramaphosa, because he was the director. You're going to have to get me right on this. He was the South African director of Glencore, right? And then he resigned in 2014.
Yes, he had a connection with the company, which I believe was a directorship at that time. And of course, he resigned a lot of things in 2014 when he returned to politics, of course.
So this was all before state capture?
I guess it was during state capture, of course, right? So, but the thing is too, Glencore in its statement yesterday spent an entire long paragraph defending President Cyril Ramaphosa, and I think perhaps the president, with friends like that, who needs enemies. Would you want Tony Soprano to be somebody to come to bat for you as a character witness? So
we have this immense admission of guilt on the part of Glencore. Is it going to hurt their business? I mean, I've seen various people describing the fine that they've paid as really, ice cream money, pocket money. It's not a lot of money compared to the actual global amount of money that they make. Is this going to hit them in the long term, really?
Well, there is this increasing drive to ESGs, or environmental, social, and governance concerns. They've clearly been a massive failure on that front. And the thing is, it's really egregious what they did, because you are enhancing corruption in failing states with impoverished populations and resource-rich nations. It's one aspect of what development economists call the resource curse. And the behavior is just so utterly egregious that Glencore is now saying, look, we're cleaning up our act. Let's move along now. There's nothing to dwell on here, but in fact there will be lots to dwell on.
It's Stoddard. Thanks very much indeed. Do appreciate it. Journalist at Business Maverick.